It's two and a quarter, two and 3/4. It's fine.
We're in. All right.
Are we ready? Are we live here?
We're live.
We are live.
What about that thing with like you reading 100 ads? Are we not doing that? I thought we were doing that.
Joey, I already made sure there was extra fire behind you in the thumbnail. Actually, that was Nathan, but
I didn't look at it. I gotta look at it. It's probably great.
It's you and fire. And there's so much fire, and Sailor's beside us, and he's looking.
I love it. I love it.
Everybody that is suddenly joining us out of the blue, obviously we're here. We want to talk about the rejection of MSTR from the S&P 500. Let's just take a look. This is a tweet from Jeff Walton, aka Punter Jeff. Strategy: MSTR snubbed from the S&P 500 inclusion. The education and battle continues. S&P 500 needs MSTR. MSTR doesn't need S&P 500. Bitcoin deserves a spot in every retirement account. AppLovin, Robinhood, and MCore were included. Gentlemen, welcome. Of course, my co-host with the most, Nathan Fitzsimmons, a Bitcoin mentor, and Joey of the Canadian Bitcoiners podcast, joining me for an impromptu little chat about what is going on. Initial reaction, gentlemen, is this like a Wall Street fear of Bitcoin kind of thing, or is this like a technical criteria kind of thing?
You go Joey, first, go for it. Okay, I'll jump in there. I think I'm wondering if this is kind of like almost like an elitist classes thing. Like they weren't going to let the Bitcoin kids at the table. That this is really coming from the prestige and the illusion of the S&P 500. Because we were talking before the hand, and I wanted to get into it, Joey, about like if you're there, you're made. And I think that they just don't potentially want to let them in the club. But I'm initially really surprised. I thought that this was going to go through. I did. I assumed that everybody who possibly could would have filled their bags beforehand, and they would have had this happen and then just enjoyed the wave. I thought greed would win out. I was betting on greed, but it seems like I may have been wrong on that one. Joey, your take, man.
There was some options moves just before the close going out to Monday. So there was some what people thought was informed bet making going on, but it turns out it was just degenerate gambling. I disagree that it's a surprise. Like Ben is running a show. How many times a week are you on, Ben? Are you on like 4 times a week now, 5 times a week?
Yeah, well, 2 times live, and then I do tutorial.
Okay, and literally every live show you do, every show you do with the fire and the thumbnails, okay, is about how Bitcoin is not allowed to do something that we think it should be allowed to do. And so you're doing that, I'm doing that, everyone's doing that, and then everyone says today on Friday we got all these live spaces, guys like Rizzo, who's like doing a live space from what looks like a Taliban hostage suite somewhere. He's so excited about the news. He's surprised. Like, why are you surprised? The whole story about Bitcoin is they haven't been allowed to do things. From a like, just to address Nate's point, I think you're right. We were talking before the show. There's a lot of technical criteria that go into whether or not a company is allowed on the S&P 500. The big ones are market cap, volatility or lack of, volume, trading volume as well. And, there's also a holistic review that the committee does. That's black box. It's opaque. No one knows. They don't answer any questions about it. They don't have to. It's not in their mandate. And I look at those things and I think, okay, well, that's enough for me probably if I was the SP committee to say no. But then on top of that, you have to remove companies. And so if you look at some of the more vulnerable companies, you're talking about like Lulu, a few others. I don't know who was removed for the winners today. AppLovin got in, I think, along with...
What is that?
It's like a mobile marketing app. So they have a pretty good market cap. If you follow Punter's, days, the MSTR stock has been technically able to be included in the S&P. AppLovin's always like 1 or 2 points adjacent to where MSTR is. I don't know why the sort of S&P committee would say no, except that obviously there's a Bitcoin thing, like you said, Nate. But I think the other thing is that it's too close to a closed-end fund. Like we've talked about this before. And I think Jeff Punter has talked about this too. Like if you're a closed-end fund, it basically means that your entire existence runs on the back of like accumulating a commodity, for example, like Bitcoin or some other asset. And so that like having that strategy, no pun intended, as your flagship is enough for them to say no. There's a lot of closed-end funds that would love to be included in the S&P. And by the same token, or adjacent token, I should say, there's a lot of ETFs, for example. There's special vehicles that would like to be included in the S&P. They can't be for a number of reasons. And I actually don't think this matters that much in the long term. I'm with Jeff. The tweet you just showed there, like, the S&P needs MSTR. And I think that it's true that MSTR doesn't need the S&P. The other thing I would just point to before I kick it back to you guys, who's buying MSTR on S&P inclusion news? The people who already own it, probably, right? Like you might see some bets, but it's got a pretty steady market cap now. It's not really a penny stock. It's pretty deep. Saylor talks all the time about how he's got tons of volume, tons of volatility. And so moving the stock on news like this probably would be difficult. And by the way, you're seeing that. What did we say it's down by after hours?
Like
3%?
2.8. Yeah, I was just pulling it up right now. So MicroStrategy is down 2.94%.
So like, who cares?
A little bit, yeah.
If you found the CEO of some company, doing crack in an alleyway, that's the kind of move you would see, right? And so I don't think people really care that much. It's important to Bitcoiners because it's sort of our we made it type thing, but I don't know. Like, I would say just don't worry about this too much for now.
Now, okay, so a couple things here. One, okay, I want to, Nathan, you shared a tweet here from TFTC in the background. I want to pull that one up here. So it's this is mystery chart. I don't know where this is from. Probably AI maybe made it. I don't know. Anyways, Joey, what do you think of these criteria? Is this true here? S&P?
Yeah, it's fine, but it's still bogus because the implication here is that it's Bitcoin, so it didn't get in. How did Coinbase get in then? Coinbase not only got in, but removed, I think, a credit card company on their inclusion. So the committee's not necessarily, attached to this idea that we can't have crypto, can't have Bitcoin, whatever, but they are attached to this idea that you can't have something that looks like a closed-end fund. And that's where their problem is. And Saylor can say whatever he wants. By the way, Saylor is on MSNBC on Monday, I think. Mm-hmm. So, look forward to that. I don't know if he scheduled that thinking he was going to get in or knowing that he wasn't or not, but I look forward to hearing what he has to say. The pundits on MSNBC will not ask him about that, I don't think, but they should. Because that's a question he should have to answer for investors that are thinking, okay, I'm going to get in on this thing before it goes price agnostic as part of the S&P 500, as part of the retirement fund, inflows that come every week, regardless of what's going on in people's lives. So we'll see. I'll be watching that.
So in regards to the inflows, we were trying to do some napkin math on what that would be, and it didn't seem to be that crazy. But I'm a little fuzzy on the upon initial inclusion. Doesn't there have to be some accumulation to bring people that are allocated to S&P up to the proper allocation based on the weighting of how large MSTR is within the S&P 500?
Yes. And so you will have at this, like I said earlier, when your companies drop from the S&P or, when they're excluded, I guess, from the S&P, that's when the rebalancing happens. That's why after inclusion, there's a 2-week buffer. So if he was included today, he would be in those S&P ETFs starting on the 19th. And so that's why you have that gap. But, people, I think a lot of people, I don't want to call them uninformed, but certainly they're not, read up on this kind of stuff, would say, well, I'm going to get ahead of this and front run the price. You can, but the initial S&P weighting for a new entrant is insignificant. You're looking at, when you look at the companies who really are, like I said earlier, truly price agnostic. You're talking Microsoft, Google, Apple, Nvidia, the mags, plus maybe a couple oil companies, plus a couple banks, plus a couple healthcares. Like the top 20 or 30 in that 500 is pretty significant. And so if you are an S&P ETF holder, you'll have exposure to that for sure. I would also, for people who are like upset about this or who say, well, now it's not fair because these committees are holding MSTR out on purpose. They're in the NASDAQ 100.
Yep.
They got over that hurdle, and maybe they'll get over this one too. But I think for now, there's probably a couple of technical sticking points that if they don't want them on there, then they don't have to. Plus, don't forget, I think the other thing too is that these guys consider risk for the holders of those ETF portfolios, right? It's not the three of us buying, VFV or SPX or SP. Like, it's not us. It's like grandma and grandpa, mom and dad, pension funds, things of this nature. And if you have a 6% allocation to MSTR in 5 years, right? Given that we have these new accounting rules and blah, blah, like you can't have a drawdown on a Coinbase hack that nukes 6% of your ETF holdings for people who are retired or retiring or whatever. That shakes the market in a major way. And so right now, Mike Saylor giving these presentations on vol all the time. Yeah, vol's cool when you're not in the club, but when you're in the club, vol is not the best thing in the world for everyone else that's there. And so that's another consideration. I think that probably, if I had to guess, goes into that holistic approach, whatever that process looks like.
They've got NVIDIA in there.
Yeah. NVIDIA is an interesting one, right? They've been under a lot of pressure because they're running like a boomerang sort of funding, renting scam. I don't want to call it a scam. Don't sue me. But like, there's certainly some creative accounting going on there in terms of how they denominate their assets, because they're basically loaning chips to people and counting those chips. I mean, you can go into this yourself. There's a lot of commentary out there. It's gonna be better than what I can give you. But the fact of the matter is, NVIDIA, for all their tricky accounting, what's in your computer? You guys all have graphics cards. You're doing video rendering. What's in your computer? It's an NVIDIA card. When you need to buy something to represent the chip market because you feel good about chips, NVIDIA's there. NVIDIA's in the what is it? I can't remember the name of the ETF, but the semiconductor ETF. Like, that's one of the big holdings. By the way, NVIDIA also in Bitcoin mining ETFs. Like, these things are volatility reducers, right? Yeah. Those agnostic flows reduce volatility. And so whether they got in there fairly or not, or whether they're running accounting fraud or not, like, now they're pretty steady, right? There's a floor there for them. And same thing with Tesla. Tesla's probably the most recent example of a company that was held out, on the grounds of someone finding religion on that committee, right? During, I think it was during COVID, they were eligible for the first time and held back. So we're not like a martyr in any way here. Okay. It's not really that big a deal. This is in TradFi. You see this all the time. There's a number of companies who are eligible, a number of companies who didn't get in, and we're just one of them.
Now there are a few other things that happened earlier in the week that, are in the same vein. And I'm wondering if you think that this is just kind of, there happened to be a number of things happening at once, or if there's any kind of explicit linkage here. One of them was NASDAQ talking about increased scrutiny on any sort of, Bitcoin / crypto related treasury companies, basically like making sure that there's voting, making sure that there's all these additional disclosures, all that kind of stuff. But we also saw, in kind of a rare move, the SEC and CFTC do a joint statement saying that they're going to have spot Bitcoin allowed on like New York Stock Exchange, things like that. Are these things just kind of, happening at the same time, or do you think that there's any kind of linkage in what's going on here?
There's a case to be made that there is increased scrutiny, and it's deserved, on treasury companies. And we don't say it like that. We don't say it like the SEC says it. But what do we say, right? Show me your proof of reserves. Yep. He hasn't done that as far as I can tell. He refuses to on the back of security or whatever. So the thing is, Saylor's trying to have his cake and eat it too in a lot of ways. And this is something we should talk about. When you report to the S&P or to the SEC or to whoever, you have to disclose your cash holdings and where these things are held and who the custodians are and all. Like, you can't talk about the cash under your bed when you're reporting to the U.S. government. But he
Trust me, bro, I got it. It's definitely there.
But he wants to do this with the Bitcoin, and then he's surprised when he doesn't get included in the S&P index. That's a problem. The other thing I will say,
why do you think that is, actually, quickly, before we jump to the next point, Joey? I have my theory about why he won't disclose it, but I'm curious what you think.
He doesn't want to have to do custody. That's why. I think that's a big reason. And so he's outsourcing that custody to people who I think his shareholders would find distasteful. And for all the things he says about how maxis are not the Bitcoiners that he's after, I think the maxis are well capitalized and buying his stock. And I think that's a turnoff for him. The security thing.
He did tell me that I could teach him how to use
it. I know, I saw that. Yeah, listen, has he sent you a plane ticket yet? I mean, I doubt it. Sure it's on the way. Yeah, I doubt it. So like that's one problem. The other thing too, I don't know if you guys saw this. I think it was on CNBC. It's on CNBC or somewhere else. I forget. Somebody went on there who's affiliated with some Bitcoin treasury company and said that Bitcoin treasury companies should be buying each other's stock. Like, you can't say that on TV and then wonder why there's a joint statement, like you said, first time ever. Like the reason these guys are saying that is because you guys are dumb going on TV. And when you look at look, Dave Bailey, I'm not a critic of his. I think he's been a net positive for Bitcoin, but outspoken about Nakamoto. The guys from Semler, outspoken. Guys from Metaplanet, outspoken. This is what we're doing. This is why Bitcoin is the flywheel. Blah blah blah. The securities exchange is not like flywheels that you think you can run in perpetuity on the back of investors who are buying your stock so you can issue debt to buy Bitcoin. Nobody likes that in that world. And in terms of like the sort of spiritual war that the committee is fighting, I mean, how do you go to Apple and say, we're going to cut into your S&P allocation because MSTR's Bitcoin holdings are going way up? Like at some point you have to say to these companies, you'll be rewarded for producing a product that, quote unquote, betters society or is in demand by the American consumer or whatever. What does Saylor have for that? He runs like some kind of food services software company. I have no idea what MSTR does. Do you guys even know what MSTR does? What do they do?
Enterprise software. I don't know what that means.
That's like a LinkedIn post, right? Like nobody fucking knows.
Software for the USS Enterprise.
Yeah. So like, what are we talking about? He I think knows this for a guy who's been in business for so long. I'm sure he understands this. And the question is whether or not he's going to be honest about what his thinking is about why he was left out. That's what we need to see.
I'm here. Yeah, I want to hear that for sure. And sorry, then I'll let you jump in there because I do in some way I feel for the guy. I did kind of want him to have that win because to have such a comeback from where MicroStrategy was to where it is now. I'd like that story. I want to see that movie. It's kind of fun. But I wonder too, and maybe I'll throw this to you, Ben, and get whatever you were thinking about. Is I understand the closed account kind of angle, and that makes sense to me. I think that's a very, very realistic possibility for why this happened. I wonder if he were to actually use the Bitcoin in some sort of way, if that would negate that and he'd be able to get in, meaning that if he was some sort of a Bitcoin bank, if he was even like we don't need that scale yet, but like a lightning liquidity provider, like if he was actually using the Bitcoin in some way directly pertaining to the business, if that would then justify or at least open up to being
he becomes a SPAC then, right? Like the thing is there is no inclusion mechanism for these he would basically become a SPAC, I think is what you're saying, Nate. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds to me like using the Bitcoin, I mean, unless he's using it to improve his software business, then I don't know. Yeah, I see this guy in the chat. Do I not know what enterprise software is? I know what it is, but the question is, what is it doing for the companies he's selling it to, right? Like, is it Salesforce or like what? What's he competing with?
I think Oracle and Microsoft.
I don't know. I have no idea. And I think it says something that all of us have talked about MicroStrategy ad infinitum for the last 2 years. And no one is like, do you know any? It's funny. I would ask like Bitcoin Satan, great name. I don't know why I'm addressing this guy in the chat. Like, do you know any MicroStrategy clients? Like, enterprise software is not the answer, man. There's, more than one layer to that. And I think that not knowing clients is a good indication that the software business is probably not as prolific as it could be. And the Bitcoin acquisitions or whatever, Bitcoin selling Bitcoin, you're probably right, Nate. He should, but can he really? Like, I don't know. Probably not. Well,
even quickly going back to the reason he doesn't disclose the addresses is I imagine whatever the custody provider is, like who the hell, like when you have that much, what kind of security model do you have for the actual key holders? So I imagine that his Bitcoin does actually move around to different addresses regularly, different key holders at different times. So it's not just someone could be potentially targeted, that they're rotating through or going to different people. And I imagine then that part of the reason he doesn't disclose the holdings is because it moves. I bet it does move quite regularly, and the market might freak the hell out if they saw it going to a new address.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's hard to say for sure. I think his concern, he was on stage somewhere and said like it's a security issue. I don't.
Yeah, that's BS, man.
Come on, man. Give me a break. I don't buy that for a second. Like the rest of us are looking at each other like, wow, what are you talking about?
The security issue comes in admitting how much Bitcoin you have. But beyond that, like, it's not like somebody can work back from an address and compromise the keys.
It's too, and like that's frustrating too, right? When he's talking to Bitcoiners, he talks to us like he's one of us, and then when he talks to TradFi, he talks to them like we can't hear it. Like you can't tell these guys that it's a security issue. We know that it's not, and then you come back to our side of the fence and tell us, that's frustrating too. But I mean, that's not really about S&P inclusion. There's a comment in here about whether or not you have to apply to get into the S&P 500. No, you meet these criterion and these guys decide, okay, you're eligible and then at 5:10, everyone starts a Twitter space, and 5:15, you find out. That's how it works.
that's pretty much it. Obligatory Twitter space.
Yeah, that's it.
Now, okay, with this, we'll call it snubbing, but with this rejection from being included in the S&P 500, does this, even for a period of time, does this have a chilling effect on other treasury companies, or in the coming weeks, days, even, do people just stop caring about this and move on to the next thing? I do want to kind of show, Joey, you're saying like, yeah, you're giving the regulators plenty of reasons to want to regulate.
100%. Yeah.
And I mean, so I did want to show. So this is NUNCHUK in the past month. It
looks good. Store of value, future of finance. Yeah.
Now, if you zoom out to the 6 month, again, like, yes, is it up? But also the chart looks a little rough because, yeah, sure, it was a couple bucks before, but and then it announced that it was the treasury company had the initial spike. It was up at like almost $25 back in May. It's currently at just over $4. And this is like with it ending the day. I'm guessing that it won't look the same on Monday post Sailor rejection.
Well, you can see it. It's off another almost 3 points after hours. So we'll see what happens between now and 8. I think markets close at 8, maybe. I forget, but yeah.
Maybe after hours is 8. I think you're right.
Yeah. And like this chat is hilarious. I love this chat because you got people in here talking about like the sort of, how Bitcoin is a useless store of value. Like it's not that it's, if you're looking at this from a non-Bitcoin lens, okay, you look at something like Nakamoto. For people who don't know, Kindly is the company Nakamoto quote unquote acquired, right? They're like, the Venom suit on Kindly MD Inc. The idea that it's a useless store of value is not really the point. The point is that you can accumulate, and I think although these companies don't necessarily admit this outright, they game some of the algorithms with stuff like the FASB rules changing, right? Everyone talked about, and actually we talked about this on the last Why We Bullish I was on, Ben. Yeah. How MSTR had these blowout earnings. It was like at 8,000%. The market was off 8,000%, and still the price of the stock was like flat or down. And what you have to look at when it comes to companies like this, and to your question about the chilling effect, I don't think unless you're trying to get in the S&P that you care about MSTR not getting in, because as we talked about, you don't apply, you have a strategy, and let's face it, okay, does David Bailey, Pierre Rochard, these guys who are involved in Nakamoto, do they care whether or not they're on the S&P? I doubt it. What they should care about, though, I think, is that there's this BTC yield metric these guys come up with, and Bitcoin per share and Bitcoin torque and all these things. When you look at your equity portfolio and you see a chart like this, right? If you let's say you bought 3 months ago, right? Instead of in May, how do you feel about that BTC yield? Because you can't call David Bailey or his proxy at NUNCHUK and say, hey, I'd like to withdraw my yield when I sell my stock. They don't have it. And there's no vehicle to distribute it. And none of this stuff is actually real or in your pocket when you sell. You sell at the equity price. And if that price is red, you lose. And so these guys have to come to terms with that idea that if you're in the equity market, BTC yield only works when price go up. But if price go down, people are going to become impatient. And by the way, they should, because they're giving you their capital to drive more capital appreciation. Not so you can put together a slide deck, wear an orange tie, and tell them their BTC per share's up. Who the fuck cares? You're not giving it to me. It's not mine. It's yours. And so this stuff has to stop. And they're going to find that if the market continues to, I think, disapprove of these companies, you're going to have a problem. And it's not just NUNCHUK. Like, we're picking on NUNCHUK a little bit, but MSTR is down over the last little while. NUNCHUK's down. Semler's down. Liquid here in Canada is down. I don't want shit on your sponsor, Ben, but Bitcoin Well, like, what does Bitcoin Well stock look like over the last few months? Like, there was a little bit of run up. That's difficult to deal with if you're a shareholder, I think. The crazy thing, it's hard to reconcile that. Yeah.
The funny thing about, I've chatted with Adam, and he's like, you know what? The fact that we have a business that actually has revenue is actually, it hurts us when we're trying to get in.
Sure.
It's like, they'll go and they'll say, hey, do you want to invest in the company? And somebody's like, well, what do you do? And they're like, well, we have a functioning business that allows people to like buy and sell Bitcoin and do all this stuff and network of ATMs. And they're like, oh, so you're not a treasury company. You're not just like, and then like they won't invest in it. He's like, literally, if we were doing nothing and just buying Bitcoin, we would get more investment than actually having a business that does a thing.
This has to run its course. Like the whole idea of having a yield on Bitcoin, I just find preposterous. Like I don't care how you justify it or what you're doing there. I just find it preposterous. It doesn't have a yield. It's just money. It's just savings. There is that monetization kind of premium as price runs up, but the treasury idea seems beyond saturated. Like I think ultimately companies will have treasuries of Bitcoin, but they won't be Bitcoin treasury companies.
Well, yeah, like the whole point being that it's a prudent thing to do if you're actually making profits and you would have a treasury that would be cash. It's a prudent thing to do and is saving it in money that nobody can print instead of as cash.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't be the main driver. It should just be maybe if you believe in a company and the actual business model of the company, and they're smart enough to then have a Bitcoin treasury and profits to fund that, then that should be like a bonus on top of an additional reason to own the company, not the reason to own the company.
Yeah, I have to put my fists up here a little bit to the people in the chat. I know what the MSTR core product is. It's software. I know that, okay? I was kind of being facetious about the software thing. But I will point out to this guy, Stephen Brook, okay? Bad look. Let me tell you something. MSTR netted $41 million off that company software business last year. $41 million. That's insignificant. It's a fucking rounding error, okay? So on this channel, I don't know if you know this, it's not about looking at the reporting every quarter to find out what the software business made. When they didn't get included in the S&P, Ben didn't message me or Nathan messaged me and say, hey, can we talk about why they didn't get included in the S&P and focus on the 41 million against the billions of dollars they have in Bitcoin? Because that's what people want to hear. No, the bad look is thinking that the core business matters to anyone investing, reviewing, recommending, declining, excluding, or including MSTR in any index, any investing strategy, anywhere in the world. That's the bad look. Don't focus on the business, the software business. It doesn't matter now. You may think it does. It does not. That's an issue that you have to reconcile yourself. It's Friday night. Have a tall boy. Think it over on your porch. But don't give me this shit about the business not knowing exactly what the business does is a bad look. That's just not true. Their core business doesn't matter anymore. When Michael Saylor does 3 hours of investing calls every quarter, does he even mention the business? Does he mention it? He spends more time talking about NVIDIA than he does talking about the MSTR core business. Yeah. You take from that what you will, but the idea that anyone cares about the core software business is like, it's obviously wrong. And I don't know why anyone cares about that.
To draw a parallel, what about Metaplanet? They were
the one hotel.
They're literally
isn't the whole idea behind Planet that in Japan, you can't get access to some of the stuff that you can in North America and Europe. And so having that Bitcoin treasury is a jurisdictional arbitrage play. I think that's what the story is, but I don't know.
Yeah, there was a unique aspect to basically the Japanese markets where they were giving access because the fact that they were a hotel business didn't particularly matter. It was just a vehicle. Yeah. I also just want to point out, this is why Joey had the flames behind him on the thumbnail. That's why that happened there. And then
I just fucking hate, people have nothing better to do than come in a chat on Friday night and say oh, it's a bad look that you don't know exactly what enterprise software. What? Who cares? No, he doesn't even care anymore.
I also want to point out that Bitcoin is down 0.1% on the day from the news.
Who
just
cares?
Nothing. Didn't react at all one way or the other.
Doesn't matter. So I guess the question maybe to wrap, not that this is my show or anything, but to wrap, is this something that next time there's an S&P inclusion announcement and they don't get in, are you going to do another show? That's really that's sort of a standard, right? That's a stake in the ground. What are you going to do if they don't accept it again? It's not going to be news, right? I don't think.
Yeah, probably not. However, you know what will take the world by storm? Dogecoin treasury company. this is the next big thing, my friends. No, this is why regulators want to regulate so hard, because they're starting to see shit like this again.
Yeah.
Clean Core, $175 million deal to establish a Dogecoin treasury, shares instantly tank by 60%. So like when you see increased scrutiny, here is one of many examples why. So
It's funny.
No, agreed. I think unfortunately too, though, like for companies like Google and Apple and Meta, companies that are like native internet companies as well too, I do think the NASDAQ changes as well as this to some degree, I think the likelihood of them putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet is way, way far away. That they're not even going to bother playing in these waters. They're not interested.
No.
They'll just stick with treasuries and cash and continue.
Yeah. One other thing, question in the chat here about how often they review the S&P membership. It's every quarter. There's a established schedule. They don't do it on a whim. They do it on a controlled cadence.
So December next. Yeah. So I mean, at the end of the day, how do you avoid the extreme disappointment of not having your bags included in the S&P 500? And the answer is just self-custody Bitcoin. just stack sats, stay humble. It's fun to chat about everything, but yeah, I mean, nothing beats just sitting on a fat stack of sats and not having to worry about.
It'll never disappoint you. Your Bitcoin and cold storage will never disappoint you.
Oh no, man, totally. What are you shilling today? Are you shilling cold cards? What are you doing?
I'm literally shilling self-custody.
Okay.
I mean, I got my cold cards beside me, so I can pull those out.
I actually, my queue is here too, because I had to do the fantasy football payouts. I had a guy send me, I asked for $50 in Bitcoin. So like 0003 maybe BTC total. And somebody sent me like $2,000 by mistake. So I had to dig up the hardware wallet and send it back to him. Yeah.
Here's your change.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, gents, I figure this is as good a time as any to wrap. If people are just tuning in right now, womp womp, MSTR not in the S&P 500. Everything is fine. Of course, go follow Joey and the Canadian Bitcoiners podcast. Again, Nathan here from Bitcoin Mentor. Myself, if you're new to the channel, of course, drop a like on the video, give a subscribe if you enjoyed what you saw, and pay attention to the clip at the end, because if you are here as a MicroStrategy holder and you have never self-custodied Bitcoin, I mean, this is the whole reason Bitcoin's around, and we'll tee you off with some educational material so you actually can begin to learn how to do that. But with that, Joey, Nathan, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Hell yeah, man. Good seeing you guys.
Later.
You guys later. Cheers.
Hey, you. Yes, you watching the Bitcoin price movements and the latest exciting news. It's awesome to stay informed, but the real power of Bitcoin comes from taking control. Don't just watch, take action. Head over to btcsessions.ca/learn for free step-by-step tutorials that guide you through every major skill you need to know, plus full video playlists for deeper dives on any topic you like. And if you're ready for the ultimate fast track, scroll to the bottom and check out bitcoinmentor.io for premium one-on-one experience with my team of Bitcoin experts to ensure you get it right the first time. Don't wait. Secure your Bitcoin future today. Hit the link in the show notes or scan the QR code on the screen.